again, we are here today to discuss two topics. One is to explain the emergency housing voucher program. It's a 10-year federal voucher that Drew will be providing more information for shortly. And the other is for Peter and Rob to talk about the work that they're doing in consulting with congregations and housing developments to help you develop greater energy efficiency on your property. Now, who we are, this is being presented by the Partnership for Faith-Based Affordable Housing and Community Development, which is a partnership of 4 organizations. One is my organization, the Interfaith Assembly on Homelessness and Housing. Second is the group that Peter coordinates and directs, the New York State Council of Churches. The third is Bricks and Mortals. And the fourth is an organization that we created specifically to help congregations with property to develop housing on their property. And that's called the Interfaith Affordable Housing Collaborative. And that Peter and I are both executives and chair and vice chair of that organization. So now we have 17 people joining us. Why don't we quickly go around the room and introduce ourselves, and then Peter and Drew and others of us will introduce ourselves later. So I'm going to go around the room and call on people to be quick and take 10 seconds. Tell us who you are so we can hear your voice, what organization you're with. Okay, Annette.
Tilly Goldman Arthur, LDC. I'm the director of rentals recertifications. Now, I'm just curious as to, is this just faith-based organizations? For faith-based? Okay.
No. Faith-based and the mission-driven organizations. Renee, you're next.
If I may,
yes.
Well, we're a faith-based organization running the work here. We're working with anyone and everyone who's interested in providing housing to the homeless.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Renee, you're next.
Yes, I'm Renee Chapman, and I'm with New Hope Lutheran Church. We currently have one rental property that is occupied and has been occupied for several years.
Great, thank you, Renee. And Laura?
I am Laura Bentley from the Emergency Shelter Network. We're a group of faith-based respite services for our homeless community.
Great, thanks, Laura. James.
Hi, I'm Jim Buckley. I'm the Director of University Neighborhood Housing Program in the Bronx.
Great. Jarrell. You're muted.
Hello, everyone. Hi, sorry about that. My name is Jarrell Lonesome, Landlord Engagement Specialist of Impact Brooklyn. I'm collaborating with Interfaith in the Emergency Housing Voucher Initiative.
Thanks. Robert. Oh, Robert, no, we'll get to you later. And Peter will get to you later. Junie.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Janine Shelton. I'm with Brooklyn Community Housing and Services, Inc., and I'm assistant property manager there.
Great, thank you. Rebecca.
Rebecca Taft, I'm with Civil Consulting, and we work with a number of nonprofit and faith-based organizations providing consulting services for affordable housing.
Great, thanks. And VS. Okay, let's move to Sandra.
Hi, I'm sorry, this is Sandra in Queens. I'm actually associated with Monticello Real Estate Group. I'm just here to learn more about the program and how we can benefit some of our tenants, potential tenants.
Great, thank you. Marlene.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Marlene Carrasco from Margaret Community Corporation.
Good, thank you.
And I am a tenant counselor.
Very good. Pietro.
Hi, everyone. Pietro Bartoli from the community of Sant'Egidio. Great to be here.
Good. Vivian.
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Tell us who you are, who you're with.
Oh, I'm Vivian Sonnenfeld. I am a tenant advocate, and I had been at CUNY Law, and I am going to be doing some more work as in advocacy.
Great. Glad to have you join us. Now, I think I missed the person who's identified at VS. I think, Peter, you know that person? But they
Yeah,
were,
that's Valerie. I'm
there
Valerie
you are, Valerie.
Samuel. I'm with the West Harlem Group Assistance. I'm the senior project manager. And we have a lot of condo conversions going on, a lot of tenant relocations going on. And of course, we manage multiple buildings in the city.
Very good.
So we have interest in learning more.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. So have we missed anybody in their introductions other than the people who will be presenting shortly? Okay, so Peter, you want to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Yes, I'm Peter Cook. I'm the Executive Director of the New York State Council of Churches. I'm also Vice President of the Interfaith Affordable Housing Collaborative, and we advocate strongly for public policy that affects people who are poor and disenfranchised, and particularly advocate in the areas of affordable housing. And we also help churches repurpose their property to build affordable housing, in addition to the two programs we're going to talk about today.
Thanks, Peter. And Rob, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Rob Kraderoff. I run a solar and clean energy consultancy here based in New York City, providing technical assistance for different opportunities for advancing affordable housing preservation through clean energy.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Drew in a moment, but I just want to preface the presentation about vouchers to say that there are many kinds of vouchers in the city. And we will, at the end of the presentation about vouchers, Drew will share a link to a sheet that describes many of them. But today we're talking about a specific type of voucher. It's an emergency housing voucher that was issued as part of the Federal CARES Act. It is a subset of a Section 8 vouchers. Section 8 vouchers are normally 20-year or more. These are 10-year vouchers, but these are guaranteed for 10 years, which is what makes it so effective. And so I think such a good deal for landlords. So with that, I'll turn it over to Drew. And Drew, I think you wanted to share a fact sheet or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up basically a small flyer that we've been using to talk about the project. Give me one moment. So again, we're the Interfaith Landlord Locator Project, and what we're doing primarily is connecting landlords and housing providers with stable long-term leases where the city of New York pays the vast majority of the rent for the tenants who are receiving the emergency housing voucher. The program was implemented as a response to how COVID-19 continued to worsen our housing crisis. And one of the key things about this is that it's a 10-year federally funded program designed to support and assist those who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, or experiencing housing instability, especially those who are fleeing domestic violence and or human trafficking. All of the tenants that would be referred to the program have a verified source of income, and most of them are families with children. One thing I want to make sure we focus on in terms of the source of the voucher, again, is that it's a 10-year federally funded program, which makes it much more secure and long-lasting than a lot of other voucher programs have been. It's not dependent on New York City funding. The tenants are screened by eligibility for 12 different city agencies and referred over to the program. And the benefits of this program include, for the tenant, obviously that they're given assistance to secure housing while only needing to pay 30% of their income towards rent. The rest comes directly from the city. For real estate brokers, if they're involved, if you know any, feel free to refer them over to this. They get a 15% commission, which is the highest allowed by law without even needing to source tenants, because the tenants are sourced through referral to the program. We're just looking for brokers to supply information and connection to open units where landlords would be open to renting to people with the voucher. For the landlords, they secure guaranteed monthly rent at competitive rates and other benefits, which include a unit hold fee equal to 1 month's rent while enrolling and waiting to meet with tenants. The city guarantees rent checks for the vast majority of the rent. There's a security deposit from the city, They get the chance, if they have repairs they want to make, to be considered for unit repair funds. The tenants are identified for the landlord. The landlord doesn't need to go looking for them. They of course get to screen them, but there's no obligation to take a tenant. They'll be having tenants referred to them. Usually they can meet up to 5 of them at a time for a screening and see who they're comfortable with. And again, there's no obligation. If you choose not to take a tenant from the program, you can of course take one from any other source you want. This doesn't change what your other options are. It just provides an additional one. As well, unlike other programs, there's an ongoing on-call support relationship with a city specialist, right from the enrollment through the lease-up process, all the way through the entire process, where you have the name, phone number, and email address for a specific person you can reach out to. Anytime you have questions or complications to work it through with them, they'll walk you through the entire process. Again, as I mentioned, the landlord or housing providers under no obligation. You're simply offered more tenants to meet and consider. And again, you get 3 to 5 of them to meet, and you can do virtual meetings if you prefer not to meet in person yet. They do things where you can do it over Zoom and meet the tenant and have an interview with them that way as well. I will share this list of links at the end, again, as Mark mentioned, that give you all kinds of information about the program, including a much more detailed FAQ, a copy of a previous seminar that we've done on video, the explanation of the various New York City vouchers, and also an explanation of the EHV tenant application process, which includes a list of the different agencies that are screening people into the program. So from there, I wanted to just stop and see if you guys had any questions about anything to do with the program.
So can I speak?
Sure.
Yes, please.
So is this, I can sign a 1-year lease, is the Section 8 like a normal Section 8 where the rent portion is paid by the tenant according to the Section 8 recertification process?
I believe it all works pretty much the same as that. The difference being what the rent is in some degree, I believe, is different. The program has, it's actually more than 8%. I think it's over 10% now above fair market rate. So the rents are pretty competitive. And also they have what they call exception payment standard areas, where rather than what the standard rent is, they go above to match what the neighborhood's costs are. So many of the rents are higher than they used to be as well.
Okay.
Vivian, any other questions?
I was wondering, are these vouchers going to be available to those prospective tenants who most need them rather than to the ones that may have the best credit or the best history and somehow still ended up in need of a voucher? I just did a study of discrimination against voucher holders based on their credit standing. And those who are at a downtime credit-wise are very often the ones most in need of housing.
To my understanding, yes. And again, we're not the city. We're kind of helping the city locate landlords, but they seem to be very much aware of the discrimination and are looking to help correct for that. And as far as I understand, there's nothing about credit required when being screened into the program. The tenants who are, most desperately need a housing, as far as I understand, is who's being screened in. And I don't know, they haven't, because of confidentiality reasons, shared all of their qualifications, but they seem to be looking for people who are struggling with housing. And they actually have, in case this affects anyone's ability to be involved in different ways, they have begun to open up to saying tenants who are currently already renting from a landlord, but are at risk of losing their home, can potentially be screened into the program to prevent them from becoming homeless in order to need to enroll.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
My boss is sitting next to me, Joe Chichu.
Hi everyone. Sorry, Annette is doing a great job listening in on this thing. When we talk about tenants, because we have a series of tenants, obviously, that have fallen on difficult times because even they even have preferential rents with me, but because of circumstances, they may be in housing court, hopefully getting that resolved. What would determine an eligible person that this, I didn't hear the early policies, so you have to forgive me. But if I have a person that has a financial need, is not able to pay the rent, is in housing court, would they qualify for this program, even though they are currently housed?
So it's a complicated answer because I can't say 100% because we're not the people who screen them in. But they would be someone who I'd be happy to try and take their information and refer them to the city program that can screen them. But yes, they are beginning to look at taking people in those circumstances. But I can't answer on a case-by-case basis who that would be or not. But I can certainly connect you or them with information to get them looked at and see if they can be screened out.
Is New York City HPD or NYCHA are the two agencies overseeing this program?
Yes.
And also the mayor's
The mayor's office of public engagement,
Public
the mayor's
engagement as
public
well.
engagement unit is kind of facilitating it. But in the background, if you're talking about kind of on the back end of it, yes, those are the agencies involved in facilitating it. But again, there are, I believe, 12 different agencies that are screening people into the program for the housing provided by NYCHA and HPD.
Another question, and I don't know if this falls into what do you call, we have people, when we first rented to them, their circumstances were such that they qualified for a 1 or even a 2-bedroom apartment. And their family composition has grown, but they were on fixed incomes, so they don't have any subsidy, ability to even afford another apartment, a larger apartment. If I have a family that has both a rent hardship in an overcrowded situation, I can provide them another apartment which meets their family needs, but the ability to pay the rent. Will this program assist those families to transfer from a smaller unit to a larger unit?
You ask a really interesting question, which I'm not going to try and tell you I've heard before. So I will have to follow up and find out more. I believe, again, that they would screen that if they were leaving the unit they were in, they either need to be homelessness or at risk of homelessness to get into the program. So again, it's tricky for me to be able to answer that. And once they're already in the program, if there's a change in family size, I'm not sure how that affects it. It hasn't been a question we've heard before. So I'll make a note of that. I'll speak to the representatives we have, and I have Annette's email address, so I'll follow up with you. It was Joe, right?
Joe, yes.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Great questions. Any other questions on the vouchers?
I do have a couple of questions, actually. In regards to the 30% obligation from the tenant, what happens if they lose their job or they're not able to pay their portion?
I'm glad you brought that up, Sandra. That's actually a really good point. So they get reevaluated. So even if they lose their job, or not even, say they just have a decrease in hours, whatever it may be, and it does include losing the job and going to zero income, they can then apply to the city for a recalculation, and that will be dropped because it's not 30% of their income when they got into the program, it's 30% of their income at all times. So if the income changes, it's recalculated and they continue to pay 30% of their current adjusted income, and the city picks up the rest. That is possible if they go to zero income for the city to pick up the entire piece as well. But they are, of course, supported in looking for other options for employment. Sandra, does that answer your question? Did you have any others?
That does. I do have another question. I just don't remember it, but I will get back to it.
Come back to us,
please.
I just want to say that I love how people's income goes down and they tell the city, but when their income goes up.
So we're not expecting them to come tell on themselves, but I do think that there is a yearly review process where they do take a look at that, and their yearly income will be adjusted once a year if it went up, but whenever it goes down, they can ask for it to immediately be looked at.
Okay.
Oh, that brings me to my second question, if I may.
Sure.
As far as the yearly renewal, speaking on a landlord's perspective, if we choose not to renew the lease, how difficult it is to find a relocation for these tenants, or how do we relocate them? I mean, obviously we will try, myself included, being a broker. I have no problem doing that, but it's so hard to find landlords about the programs these days.
I want to answer your question. Just want to pause for a second to welcome Betty. Betty just joined us, and she's the representative from Enterprise. who's kind of overseeing our involvement with this project. Thank you, Betty. And Sandra was actually just asking a question you might want to chime in on, which was if they do rent to a tenant and then at some point they choose to discontinue the lease, how does that tenant find new housing, and are there any difficulties involved in that? The answer, as far as I understand it, is it works the same as it would with any other tenant. Once they are in the rental situation, there's really no difference between them and any other tenant. They are there as long as the lease continues, and if the landlord has a reason to cease it, it works the same as it would with any other tenant. They have to go look for a new unit. Betty, do you know if that happens? Is the tenant is allowed to come back and ask for further assistance to look for a new unit? And also, if the tenant chooses to leave on their own, the landlord can come back to the program and say, I want a new tenant as well. But again, basically it works the same as with any tenant, and both sides, I believe the tenant and the landlord can ask for further assistance to help find a new unit or a new tenant. Is that correct, Betty?
I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
I thought that the site was going to include all 5 lots.
Yes.
I think somebody else is
And the
speaking
goal
too.
is to include all 5 lots eventually. The problem is that, you know, we're gonna have to acquire.
Does
the
anybody
lots
else hear the other person speaking?
Because
Can folks hear me?
It's very
we
faint.
can hear you. Let me, yeah, sorry, thank you.
Sorry, Betty, I was figuring out who it was and putting them on mute. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
Sounds good. Yep, that's a great question, Sandra. Very relevant, especially for landlords who, for example, might be planning to sell their property. They wouldn't be looking to renew the lease with that voucher holder tenant in that case. So that's a great question. Drew, your answer is spot on. The tenant will have support from their public housing agency, be it NYCHA or HPD, in order to look for an additional, for a new unit. And the landlord can also receive support from NYCHA and HPD to navigate that transition from ending the lease with their voucher holder tenant and moving that person out. So there definitely is support, and this is the situation that NYCHA, HPD, the public housing agencies are familiar with.
Does that answer your question?
Actually, it's not so cut and dry, because like I mentioned before, it's so difficult to find landlords that will take these programs that even though the landlord might say, hey, I want our house back, or I want to sell my house, then it depends on when the tenant is able to find another place, or the program is able to help them find
Right.
another
That's, I
place.
kind of wanted to double back because I was not sure. So I just want to be transparent and say again, the program is designed to help connect the landlord and the tenant and supply the option. But from there, the relationship is very much the same as with any other tenant. And my current landlord loves me at the moment, but when I moved in, she grilled me and wanted all my financials and wanted to call my previous landlords because she'd had some bad experiences with people who weren't on the voucher program. And she was very, hesitant to rent to anybody. So in every relationship, there's a risk of whether or not it's going to work out to be a tenant you're comfortable with or not. And whether or not that tenant is going to be able to comfortably and quickly move on as much as you'd like them to. But that risk, I feel like, exists in pretty much all relationships. So I can't really speak to it. It depends very much on what the same way it would for any tenant and landlord. But on the upside, there is the guarantee of the rent being paid, even if they lose their job, even if there are hard times, where the city comes through and pays that. And if the tenant, for any reason, doesn't come through to pay their small portion, they are at risk of losing their voucher. So they're highly motivated to pay their small percentage of the rent. So I think renting to a tenant in this program in many ways is a safer bet to make sure that you get your rent, but runs all the same risks you would run into with any other landlord and tenant relationship.
Right. In which event, if that's the case, then once that lease expires, then they can go from a month to month until they find a place.
I suppose that's an option, but it's a 10-year program. So I imagine the tenant would, and the landlord would see a benefit to keeping it that way because they get the money coming through from the city guaranteed. I don't know why they'd want to switch to month. And I think, if you don't mind, we may get into very specific questions. And I know Peter still has things to do with solar. Can I get back to you at the end if we stay after 4 o'clock? Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sandra. Did anybody else have new questions before we move on to Peter's portion on the solar energy? And I will stick around at the end if people have further questions about each EHV.
So I just have one question. How long does the tenant have to get an apartment? Is it 30 days, 60 days? How long do they have before to get the apartment?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, because I know before with Section 8, they gave you 30 days to get a place. So I wanted to know with this particular program, how long do they give the prospective tenant for them to get an apartment?
How long is the voucher active, you're saying, right?
Yes.
Before it expires, yeah. Betty, do you want,
Yep,
you're nodding.
take
You
that
want,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, oh, thanks, Mark. Right, Laura, great question. So we've heard from HPD, the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, and NYCHA, New York City's Housing Authority. Those are the public housing agencies, that the deadline for people to obtain a voucher is September of this year. And the deadline for people to be linked with a unit, so the voucher holder to be linked with a unit, is December of this year. Does that help, Laura? Great.
Good. So before we move on, and we will be opportunity for more discussion later, but before we move on, a number of people just joined us. I want to say that if we'd like you to provide us information in the chat as to your name, your organization, your title, and also how you heard about us, as well as if you can refer us to any other group that you work with, and putting those lists, those questions again. And also about 4 people joined us, and I'd like them, if you'd like to introduce yourself on the Zoom. I know, Betty, why don't we start with you? We've heard from you, but we haven't heard who you are particularly. You want to introduce
Thanks, Mark.
yourself?
Yeah, I dove right into it.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. I'm here representing Enterprise Community Partners. We're a national affordable housing nonprofit, and working with the great team at Interfaith Assembly and the Interfaith Landlord Locator Project on hopefully identifying units and connecting them with the Emergency Housing Voucher Program. So I'm here a bit today to talk about some of the benefits for landlords, answer some of your questions. So thanks for having me. And Mark, I'll pass it back to you.
Great. And I think Jason joined us. Jason, you want to say hello for a minute? Tell us who you are.
Sure. Jason LeBate. I'm an attorney at Goldstein Hall, and I'm the chair of Bricks and Mortals, which works with faith-based organizations and their real property. And I never miss an opportunity to see a presentation that Mark and Peter do.
That's very kind. Thank you, Jason. I feel the same about you, but Jason is a wealth of information, one of the real experts in providing and helping congregations develop affordable housing on their property. He's a consultant to our work, and also the chair of another group that we're part of. Also, Miss Iyengar, you joined us. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is.
Oh, Mr. Sorry. Okay. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, my name is Saptiri Iyengar Gary, and I'm a housing navigator, and I'm actually working exclusively with the EHV voucher holders and connecting them.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And I'm so sorry, I'm on hold with NYCHA as I speak, so I'll listen to other people.
Okay.
Hello,
a few
yes,
other people,
hi,
yeah,
yes.
a few other people joined us. You want to introduce yourself? I can't remember who exactly you were, but about 3 or 4 other people.
Yeah, this is Elizabeth Malone from Neighborhood Housing Services of Brooklyn. I do landlord training for our organization. We also have a property management program run by Byron Todman here. But I wanted to find out more information because I do mention supported rents when I do landlord training. I think that new landlords would really benefit by investigating these possibilities, especially if they're getting down payment and closing cost assistance, kind of pay it forward. So yes, I'm sorry I was late on, but I was on the phone with a client, and I'll appreciate getting whatever information is going to come out at the end here.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. And let me say also, we are recording this workshop, and we will also be reviewing the workshop for any questions that we don't catch in our notes. So I expect you'll be hearing back from one or more of us to answer those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Some other people joined us. I can't remember who. Just call out your name. Tell us who you are if you joined us and you didn't introduce yourself in the beginning.
Hi, my name is Oswald George. I'm the
Good.
Housing Specialist Coordinator for NICA, Neighborhood Association for Intercultural Affairs. I oversee housing for all our sites where we move people from shelter into permanent housing. I'm here just to find out if there's any new information and assist wherever I can.
Great. Anyone else and so we're going to be back in touch with you, I think, Oswald, because clearly we have a lot of work we can do together. It's great to have you with us. Anyone else who joined us who didn't get a chance to introduce themselves?
Hi there, my name is Uriah Johnson, calling in for on behalf of Help Development Corp. Our sister or partner entity is Help USA. So also here just to find out more about what's available and if there's any updates that would be valuable to our work.
Great, thanks, Uriah. Anyone else that we've missed? Okay, good. So now I just want to invite everyone again.
One quick thing I wanted to just comment, Mark.
Yeah,
I'm going to
sure.
drop my email in the chat. And again, if any of you want to reach out to me, you're more than welcome. And also, if you have another organization that you think would be, or a private landlord or a broker you think we should reach out to, I'd be very happy to have you share their information with me or share my information with them to make that connection. Thank you very much.
Or any other mission-based housing provider. And also, please, again, give us in the chat your name, your organization, your title, how you heard about us, and as Drew said, any place you think we would should be in touch with. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Peter Cook.
Great.
Peter, you're on. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Mark. I just wanted to say that, you know, any of these questions that you've posed, Drew would be happy to sit with Betty and somebody from the city to get you the complete answer that you need. So we want to be sure to arrange that. I want to first say that one of the tasks of our partnership is to identify congregations and church property that could potentially be repurposed into building affordable housing. And we have a process that in some cases forgivable loan money to help walk a congregation through that process so that they can eventually negotiate with a developer to build that housing. Enterprise Community Partners is also involved in this process, as is LISC. So if you have a church property that you're interested in repurposing and would like to talk to us, I put my information in the chat. Today, what I want to focus on is with housing developments, your property managers, to see whether or not you are taking full advantage of clean energy and solar technology to save on your costs. And it can get a little confusing trying to sort out what your options are. And sometimes it is helpful to have somebody sit with you, look at your bills, examine what you're currently doing, examine what you might be doing, and give you some recommendations. And so we've received a grant from NYSERDA to offer to you housing property owners that kind of advice free of charge. And we do that at the Council of Churches in partnership with Rob Crotterroof, who is a real expert in this field. He's a graduate of both Columbia University and MIT and has a consulting firm which has worked with a variety of groups, including Enterprise Community Partners, to sort this out. So we also render this service to congregations that want to look at their solar use and property. And we also help congregations to sell solar subscriptions to low and moderate income families and to work on social justice around climate justice and affordable housing community in your community. But for today's session, we're going to focus on energy options and solar for housing providers. So Rob, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Peter. So I'd like to lay out at a high level a couple different approaches that affordable housing providers may consider to take advantage of solar energy. As Peter noted, we have just been awarded a grant from the state to provide technical assistance. And so there are a couple, really, when we look at solar, there's a couple different considerations. One is, of course, we want to understand what's going on with your building, where there's physical feasibility, but what gets exciting is around different deal structures. And there's really three that I want to highlight. I won't go into in a lot of depth, but we can talk during the Q&A or afterwards in greater depth. The first of these is community solar. So this is where solar is built on your property. You may come out, if you have, especially if you have ground up construction and can take advantage of housing tax credits and solar tax credits and come into a deal, then community solar could be something that you're coming out of pocket for and able to both reduce your own electric bills and save on the bills of your tenants, offer them a discount and earn some revenue through the process. It's possible for a third party to come in as well. And then there can be what's called a power purchase agreement, which is a reduced electric rate on your bills for all the solar power that's generated. So if you're paying 13 cents per kilowatt hour, then maybe you're paying 12 or 11 cents per kilowatt hour for your electricity. And those savings frequently increase over the course of time with this type of arrangement. The third opportunity is just a traditional, what's called net metering approach. It tie in directly to your electric account. This is what a lot of people think about when they think of solar. Oh, I'm going to offset my common area charges, right? And we just connect directly to the building and the electrical meter, the common area meter of the building. And given the fact that electric prices are growing, increasing, they've been up in previous years. And of course, we all know that between what's going on around the world and inflation, then actually Con Ed has requested increases for electric delivery of about 11%, 12%, and supply is going up kind of similarly this year. So we're looking at some pretty dramatic increases in electric prices that solar can help to offset. So if you are connected to your building directly, then you can see the discounts off of, instead of paying Con Ed, you're paying off your solar system, and the returns can be better and better over time. The fourth opportunity is around solar subscriptions. This is a newer opportunity. There are community solar projects, on larger roofs, solar farms across the state. Increasingly, some in Con Ed. We have some that are coming up in the next month, where there can be 10% savings potentially off of your own common area charges, as well as you being able to sign your tenants up. And we're able to offer essentially a $100 donation or referral fee for every individual that you help sign up. So that's essentially, there are credits on the electric bill that result in 10% savings by signing up to a solar project that's not on your building. Someone else is building it, financing it. It's simply a paper transaction that results in electric bill savings. So that's sort of the easiest way to be able to participate in a solar project. And we're taking a list right now, actually, of a number of projects that are about to open up. So that's an emerging and exciting opportunity. And the last way that we assist is working with housing owners, congregations on the energy efficiency side of things. There are local laws that have come into effect that are encouraging and requiring certain energy efficiency measures. And we come in and we'll work side by side with you, energy efficiency engineer, and also potentially the New York Accelerator to help you. Really, where we focus is on the deal structuring side, and how do you make sure that you're able to get the economic benefits that you deserve and that you should get out of a project, and walk you through different options along those lines in tandem with a technical team. So at that, I will I'll leave it back to Peter, but looking forward to your questions.
Great, thanks, Rob. You know, as landlords and housing owners, you know that there are many ways to save money or get money, and also to spend money. And so we wanted to intentionally bring this to you in the context of the voucher conversation, which gives you an income stream on the rental side, but also helps you look carefully at your costs on the expense side, particularly around energy use, and to see if you're taking full advantage of what should be coming towards you to get those cost savings. So questions?
Yes, Renee. Unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, okay. I was wondering, because a while ago I was thinking about an idea of our church actually installing solar panels so that we could decrease our electrical costs, you know, on a regular basis, and also maybe provide electricity for the community. So how does one go about assessing whether or not that's even feasible?
Well, I'll just jump in, and Rob, you could say on, let's have a conversation. we could call you,
okay,
and we could look at exactly at your property and your situation, and we can give you some advice.
Okay.
So
thank you.
And to build off of that, then we'll work with you to consider physical considerations like a new roof, to financial considerations such as, do you have the money or do you need someone else to be able to pay for the system? And we have some partners that really specialize in working with nonprofit organizations and houses of worship that are used to what would be considered relatively small projects in the world of solar, but that are really mission driven and know the importance of getting these projects done.
So Renee, we could get your contact information and try to set up a time.
Yeah, I think I already sent in my contact information.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great.
I have a quick question on solar. Being in the real estate market, I have a couple of clients that are interested in installing solar on their house, but they also are inquiring about new roofs. So I don't know the ins and outs of it, but apparently there are some companies that's advertising new roofs along with the solar installation. Is that something that you offer as well?
Yes, it depends on the size and the types of the project, but re-roofing can be folded into a solar project at times. Yes.
And again, just to be clear, what we offer is analysis and advice, including vendors and possible financing options. So we're kind of like an owner's rep is what we do.
That's right. We're happy to review and provide comments on a proposal that you may have gotten. And if you want us to help to find additional options, if it's something that is where we have the reach, then we're happy to help to find those. Or if you're just happy with with who you'd like to work with and want a markup of a proposal, then we can take a look and send that back to you, and you can be better informed with your discussions with the provider.
Okay.
Just
Are you also looking for salespeople?
we can talk.
Uh,
Know where to find me.
Interesting. So Sandra, which group are you with?
I'm actually with the real estate group, real estate / developer. So I'm more here to learn a little bit more about the program so that I can educate myself and landlords for potential tenants mainly.
Great.
Sure,
But,
well,
you know, there's so much more information to take advantage of.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there, and definitely there's a need to educate and help folks get the benefits that are there. So we're happy to talk.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, questions. I wanted to know if we could go back and just say any questions at all related to either the voucher or the solar that we could answer. I know that Betty came on a little late, and she might be able to field some of the questions which were posed earlier if people wanted to, restate those. But I did see a couple questions in the chat that I thought we could address. So one is from, this is from Betty, I'm sorry. There was another one that Annette Tilley, your team had asked, I think. Did you get did you want to restate some of your questions again?
I think Annette just put it in the chat at the hold fee.
Yeah, the hold fee is only 1 month's rent, but the process takes longer to get an inspection and an HAP contract. Betty, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Thanks, Annette. And you're
You're on to mute one of yours. You're echoing.
Is this better? Can you all hear me?
Yes, better.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Peter. And Annette, you're spot on. You're right that the lease up process we're seeing right now, that it oftentimes does take more than 1 month. So the unit hold incentive right now provided through Enterprise only covers the 1 month. We also want to acknowledge that there are other incentives that are being provided through EHV and through Enterprise as well for both landlords and brokers. So Drew might have spoken to the 15% broker's fee that's provided, the guaranteed rent income from that'll be coming either from NYCHA or HPD. If the tenant's income changes and their contribution to rent also has to change, then NYCHA and HPD can take up the amount that needs to be changed so that the payment that the landlord gets remains unchanged. Enterprise is also offering another incentive, which is access to repair funds for the unit to meet housing quality standards, which would also improve the unit overall and would be a great benefit to the landlord. So the unit hold incentive, right, want to acknowledge you're right that it doesn't cover the 1 month. Lease up usually takes longer. There are also other EHV incentives to take advantage of. Yeah, Annette, does that help? Are you a landlord? Are you a broker? Do you think people would be responsive to that? Drew, go ahead.
And I do want to just say, well, I totally understand Annette's comment about it only covering 1 month when it sometimes takes longer. And I know we've talked about that ourselves, Betty, in meetings. I also want to acknowledge while it only covers 1 month, it's more than I've heard of any other program offering. So it is still a significant gain, even if it's not the perfect fit.
And Annette had a question about how much do we have in the repair fund? And Betty, if you want to handle that.
For the repair funds, it really depends on what the unit needs to get up to housing quality standards. So for example, say Annette, you're a landlord, you have a vacant unit, you're interested in EHV, you want to take advantage of the repair fund. So first off, we would have you start off talking with one of the housing navigators to have potential tenants meet you, view the unit, and then we're going to have a community-based organization working within our initiative come to the unit to conduct a pre-inspection and see what are the repairs that are needed for your unit to meet HQS in order to pass HQS. So we would conduct a pre-inspection, create a scope of work for repairs, and we can also help you connect with a general contractor who can perform those repairs. And hopefully you'll be able to pass housing quality standards, that inspection smoothly, and be able to move in a tenant as soon as possible and really cut down on that lease up process time. Does that help, Annette?
Do we have it on mute?
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Joe. I work with Annette. I'm the executive director. First of all, to disclose who we are. Annette works with me. I'm the executive director of the Belmont Alta Local Development Corporation. We're a not-for-profit owner management company. We have 75 buildings, 2,500 units, and we're involved in the whole alphabet programs on federal, state, and city things. We find this possibly useful for us. We handle our own, we don't have outside contracts. We do soup to nuts. We have our own construction crew, et cetera. We do our own management, we do our own, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So we would like to streamline. I'm not saying everybody who's on this call is in the same position. They come from all fields of of the housing industry. We would like to shortcut all of that. If we have a unit that was in disrepair for whatever reason, because it's an old unit, occupied by a 40-year-old tenant that needs to be upgraded versus also a tenant that may have done some serious damage and recently rented, that is in disrepair, that has to be brought up to standards. We understand HQS. We rehab all of our units to HQS. The question is, what kind of dollars? Because when we're talking about an old unit that was out of, wasn't updated for many, many years. We're talking about new kitchens, maybe new cabinets, et cetera. So it can come into the thousands of dollars. And unfortunately, for some tenants that we've had that were somewhat destructive, that could have also happened with a relatively new rehabilitated unit. What are the dollars that, and those are the units that are most challenging for us to fix up. How many dollars are we talking about that this program envisions to bring the unit up to?
Enterprise.
Yeah, Joe, appreciate that context about your organization. Thanks so much for the question. And let me give an example. So the repair fund is currently working with one homeowner right now in East New York. He is a small landlord, is living on the first floor unit, needs to make repairs to the second floor unit in order to meet HQS, in order to get that unit approved for EHV. The thing is that the building and the unit was damaged during Ida. So what is actually needed in that unit is much more extensive than just the minute cosmetic repairs in order to meet EHV. So we're talking like tens of thousands of dollars for that second floor unit to meet HQS, but we're willing to work with it because we know that this owner is sincere and committed to following through with the EHV program, which is why I'm saying it really depends on the unit, what is necessary in order to meet HQS, and the commitment to having a EHV tenant remain housed or a voucher program tenant remain housed. Can y'all hear me? I have some construction noise.
Yeah, you're good.
The other thing, Joe, that you're making me think of, if I am to give you a number, then we've spoken with HPD, we've spoken with NYCHA. They've told us that usually the cost of a repair scope to meet HQS is anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 in order for basic repairs to meet HQS. So those are also the numbers that we're thinking of. But really, we want to make this initiative a resource for landlords who are sincere, committed to helping out voucher holders, New Yorkers in distress, and seeing what their repair needs are and just being responsive to those. So if there are already units in mind that you're thinking of, very open to having a conversation with you, seeing what that unit needs, and we could take it from there. How does that sound?
It sounds very good, and you'll be hearing from me.
Awesome.
Excellent.
That's great. Okay,
I
that's
wanted to make, if possible, just one more quick comment about the lease up period and the 1 month hold fee. I do know that some of the advice I'd been given when we asked about this in the past was that the landlord can coordinate with the city agency asking for like a plan of all the needed paperwork and steps. And that if they kind of are able to plan ahead and move that quickly, they can often stay within that 1 month window. Sometimes it's a matter of how quickly the steps can be gotten through. So again, I think just advanced planning and coordinating with the rep from the city can help speed that up, where you stay either within or much closer to that 1 month hold fee.
Drew, this is Annette. I have somebody that has an EHV, and unfortunately, I did speak to the director of inspection at HPD, and I got like a 3 weeks out inspection. If I had called early June, it would have been the end of June. So there, and then once it passes, then you have to wait for somebody to get you a HAP contract, and it's not like they're guaranteeing a July 1st or, you know.
I understand. Yeah, no, and I've heard that as well. Betty, I mean, am I mistaken in thinking that from what I was told, because of the one-on-one relationship with the program, that is often streamlined? And again, I haven't been on that end of it, so I cannot promise I've been through it, but I've been told that because of the way they're organizing this, where there's a one-on-one assignment to a worker who worked with you, you have their phone number, their email, you can reach them directly, that it's a much more responsive and fast-moving relationship. Although again, it is a relatively new program, so I can't say what that's been over time.
I'm sorry, Ben.
But that has been the intent, and from what I'm hearing, there's been some success in improving the speed and streamlining of it.
Betty, do you have a response to that around that, you know, getting a call back?
Yeah, and I mean, Annette, like clearly you guys are very savvy with already working with the EHV program, with getting in touch with HPD. You know that the lease up process takes more than a month. It is actually, we're hearing that it's taking anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. So Drew, great point that the Housing Navigator will do their best to streamline the process for you, try to represent the landlord as you guys are trying to connect with NYCHA and HPD. So the one thing that I can't promise anything on time, but the one thing I can promise is that the landlord and broker will not be left hanging by the Housing Navigator, be it having to follow up with the right agencies, getting those questions answered. Like Drew was saying, there's going to be a specialist, a person with phone number, email that you guys can always reach out to, and who it's also their job to stay in touch with you and not leave you hanging during this whole process. So that much is for sure.
Just a quick comment. City Peps used to offer not only 1 month's hold, but a $4,300 bonus. You know, so you didn't mind waiting if it took longer than a month. But maybe the fact of getting some repairs as a means of funds for us would make up kind of waiting a little longer than the month.
Mm-hmm. Right, there's definitely more incentives outside of just the unit hold that's being offered by this initiative. Yeah, and Annette, Joe, like really appreciate the questions too. I feel like we could have an hour-long conversation just on our own. So we'll definitely put you in touch with the Housing Navigator that we're working with. And I also see Saptagiri, you also have a question, and Saptagiri is also a Housing Navigator with Queens Defenders, so maybe he could chime in here as well.
Yes, I just want to make two quick points and it's concern. Well, it's a very legitimate concern, and I, as a housing navigator, I am in the middle of it every single day. But the good thing has been that I work directly with HPD, so we have access to most housing navigators have access to these supervisors within the HPD department. So anytime when there is like an undue delay, if the housing navigator is really on top of the case and they reach out to the HPD department, they have been very responsive. And I've been able to push through some of my cases by getting in touch directly with the HPD supervisors. And the second point regarding regarding the HAP contract itself is that from what I have seen, there is absolutely a delay from the date of just getting an inspection date, and then after the inspection is done to issuing a HAP contract. However, I have seen that the HAP payments always start from the day of on the day when the inspection passed. So if it was on, let's say the inspection was scheduled on the 15th of July and the HAP did not pass till the 30th of July, the payments actually start from the 15th of July. That is what I have seen. But just getting that inspection day itself has been a challenge. Like, we put in the landlord package, and then it takes anywhere between 2-3 weeks, and there's no fee they pay for that waiting period to get the inspection date.
Thank you.
So there were two questions that came up in the chat, which I wanted to just check in with you on, Betty. Someone had asked about the repair fund and asked to clarify whether it was a grant or a loan. If I'm correct, it is not a loan. It does not need to be paid back. Is that correct?
Correct. It is not a loan. It is a grant. But there will be a grant agreement where the landlord commits to housing either an EHV or a voucher program tenant for a certain number of years. So that's correct. It's not a loan, it's a grant.
And the second question was about if there was a sign-on bonus for landlords. And I believe different programs offer different incentives. That our program does not offer the sign-on bonus, but it does offer the hold fee and the repair fund. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So does anybody else have any questions about the program, how it works, or is anyone looking for us to put you in touch with a representative of the program to discuss finer details and we may be able to answer here?
Could I ask a question for our providers here? Have any of you had experience with vouchers, and have you run into any challenges taking a housing voucher other than what you've already mentioned so far?
This is Joe again from Belmont. As it pertains to Section 8, be it NYCHA or HPD, other than inspections and the processing, it goes pretty well. But when it comes to FEPS and SEPS, it is a tremendous challenge, including what we're experiencing now with renewal of leases. They have a process by which, instead of automatically providing a lease renewal, we have to go through this Byzantine process of writing a letter to one of the providers of Bronx Health, whichever, explaining that a lease is being renewed, and it takes an inordinate amount of time. So I don't know if I know this is not regarding FEPS or SEPS, but it is an inoperable program. And if it can be made better with the people that are here, understanding how it's really not functioning the way it ought to be, it's a real disincentive if you're a landlord, be it non-for-profit or profit, to be involved in the FEPS SEPS program.
But this is not the story.
But I know it's not. I don't want this program to have the same issues. I know that the devils are in the details. And we haven't gotten all the details yet, but I hope that none of those type of issues from FEPS and SEPS appear in this particular program.
Yeah, Peter, if I could speak about that, actually,
Yeah.
we've been working with a group for the last year, working on city PEPs vouchers and working with the with the HRA commissioner and with the housing czar, and clearly they're looking to make changes, and we're kind of in the midst of that conversation. So Joe, I'd love to talk with you more about, we're trying to feed back to the city what's working, what's not. They seem to have a real commitment to make it more efficient. According to Jessica Katz, who's the housing czar, it was set up really in a messy way. She realizes that things need to be restructured. She's committed to doing that, but I'd love to talk to you, any such suggestions you have about how that could happen.
We'll talk, Mark, no problem.
Yeah, and Betty, I'm just curious, from your perspective, what in our voucher program might be better than the city FEPs in terms of addressing some of these complications?
Yeah, what's coming to mind is that we've also heard criticism that city FEPS payments have not been on time, or sometimes some of the payments will be missing. So I think Safagir, you might have referenced this before too, but because EHV is a Section 8 voucher, the funding source and the payments are also more reliable. So you should be expecting timely monthly payments, be it at the start of the month or on the 15th. So that's the biggest distinction that comes to mind from city FEPs. With EHV too, because EHV was rolled out just last year, and there's a limited number of vouchers that the New York State has been allocated to connect voucher holder tenants with apartments to. The city is very focused on making sure that the EHV vouchers are used and that it's successful. So we're seeing that reflected in the support for the housing navigators in the public engagement unit, as well as the home support unit that somebody mentioned before, that provides lease-up support to landlords. So those are the two big differences between city FEPs and Section 8, the funding source, payments, and the one-on-one support.
Great.
I have a quick question, sorry.
Yeah.
What happened after 10 years when this voucher expires?
Yep, great question. Because funding for EHV is set for 10 years, but what happens in the 10 years after that? So the city would still be committed to finding a funding source after the 10 years with EHV to keep the program going. It won't be funded for 10 years and then EHV is no longer funded. That won't be the case. We should start planning a campaign at the 8-year mark.
Got it.
Yeah.
I will say that if the program is well used and effective, that the chances of a renewal and funding are better. So to make full use of what we've got, and if there are bugs we need to work out, to be in communication with us so that we can make this program as effective as possible.
Thank you.
I did have a question for Joe, just on the energy thing. I didn't know if you would have some interest in looking at your energy footprint there. You manage a lot of properties, and
Peter, you're correct that we have a variety. Some of them are fairly large properties that we have, and they're not encumbered by any of the larger buildings that would prevent us from getting the maximum number of solar benefit. We've been thinking about it, and maybe we will be contacting you to look at it. I'm just trying to figure out how much of this is out of pocket, how much of it is grant, how much could be funded through NYSERDA. There's so many things. I don't want to occupy too much of the time, but there's a lot of pieces to this thing. The most cost efficient, we want to go green, but I don't want to go bankrupt going green.
Right. So let me just say, that's what we do. That's what we do, is we help talk that through with you, to look at all these different programs. There's a lot of moving parts, and we can kind of help you sort through this maze and figure out, what makes the most sense for you.
I just want to mention just one thing. We bought into the code generation thing. We had a very large building, 165 units, a former, what do you call it? Well, it was an older building that we refitted. And it's doing the trick, but I'll be honest with you, the payback on the amount of investment that we put in, even with NYSERDA, is not producing what we want. And not to say we want to have a bonanza, but let's say we've been slightly off mark as to what the savings were going to be and the benefits. And to put the time and effort into doing something for what I would presume to be marginal benefit, though we are saving the planet, I guess, in our own little way, but it has to, for the time and effort that we have to exert, it has to produce a little bit better return on investment.
Right. So I think, again, we can kind of help you look at that. And it's not just solar, it's a lot of other things too.
Sure.
So, and it's kind of a cost benefit analysis, but sometimes because this gets confusing, to have somebody who can kind of listen to you and piece it out a little bit, it could save you some time.
I appreciate that, Peter.
Okay, great. Okay.
I'm sorry.
And that goes for anybody else on this call who would like that kind of help. So
I have a quick question again. Would the program consider a conversion of a hotel?
Which are you referring to, vouchers, or are you referring to?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I should clear that up. Vouchers. Yes.
Okay, sure.
Vouchers.
Betty?
Yeah, Sandra, I don't know the answer to that one, but the housing navigators would. Subthicker, do you happen to have an idea if hotel conversions would also qualify? I mean, if they meet the...
I think it depends on if they meet the legal definitions for the SRO. And if they do, I think that from what we had heard from the city in the past, that they would be possible to convert.
Would that be a CFO issue? Would he have to apply through the building department to get a CFO? Or it would be like a long-term stay hotel CFO?
I think maybe we should put you in touch with the representative from the city program to iron out the details, because I don't want to misspeak.
Right.
I'm under the impression, I think they kind of lean towards the idea of saying it was CFO, but I mean, you've had a couple of great questions and it sounds like there's a certain amount of interest. And to be clear, like just speaking to someone from the city is no obligation to have to partake in the program. It's just another step of getting into the specialists who have long-term involvement. I mean, we've been involved in a few months of getting this off the ground where it is, but the people in the background behind us have a much more wealth of time, experience, and information on this. So anyone who's even like, hey, I might be interested, it'd be worth having a conversation just to get a little more detail, find out some more options. So I would love to just put you in touch with someone to answer those questions.
Yeah, that would be great, because I've been trying to help this hotel owner to get a program into it, but there's a couple of things that he does not qualify. A shelter for one, because there's another shelter down the block from him, and then certain programs, and then we can determine if it's a long-term stay, then he have to convert. But he doesn't want to invest that kind of money unless he knows that he is getting that income to do that. And so he wants some kind of commitment also from the city or a program.
You said something that made me think, and I don't know, Betty, if this is not one unit, it's one building with multiple units in it, would the repair fund give a certain amount of money based on the number of units so he could do work on the building to convert it?
Oh, yeah, Sandra, let's definitely get some more detail in writing and then bring this up with the housing navigator. Definitely. Enterprise is also connected directly with HPD, so we could bring this up with their EHV team as well. And the feedback that I want to share about like the certificate of occupancy C of O is that we've also gotten the question from landlords with basement units that are not yet legalized, but they're interested in putting that through the EHV program. And because of the tight deadline with EHV, in that the voucher holder needs to be connected with a unit by the end of this year, unless it's like a very quick process, which unless it's a quick process to get the C of O change, which it rarely is, it would be difficult to make EHV work with, for example, basements that are yet to be legalized or hotels that are yet to be converted. But let's definitely see some more detail about your situation and bring it to the rest of the team. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's great, but I'm sorry, I did not, if I missed that part about basements, are they considering basements as well?
They are, but the issue is it would still have to be code compliant, and the certificate of occupancy would have to change, which oftentimes will take a lot of time, beyond the December deadline for EHV. But yeah, let's hear some more detail about your specific situation. Yeah.
Sure.
If I could just share real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a lot of experience with a bunch of different brokers and landlords that had properties, that had hotels, that wanted to do the same exact thing. The only one that was able to actually do it, the CEO had it listed as SROs. So it was a hotel, but the CEO had it as SRO, so he was able to do it as an SRO also. So
yeah. Thank you. So let me just say, and Mark, you could chime in here. We work really hard with Ted Houghton from Gateway Housing, and I know Enterprise and some others to pass a revision to the Honda bill, which would loosen the regulations, which would allow for hotel conversion without having to do things like widen the elevator shafts or do a full gutting of the property. And literally that bill just passed and was signed into law. So everybody who had thought of doing a hotel conversion before, who thought they couldn't do it, should go back now and take another look, because the rules have changed.
In regards to the SRO, what I was told by one person is that if you put in a kitchenette in each room, it would not be an SRO. It would look more like an apartment. So an SRO CFO is not needed in that case.
No, so I don't know what's EHV's rules, but for city perhaps, the actual inspection, it's not fully a kitchenette. You just need a mini fridge and a hot plate. Right. And I
think that's what's considered a kitchenette, I believe. I still you have a cooking equipment of any kind.
Yeah, so the landlord had to put a mini fridge and a hot plate in each SRO room for it to pass inspection. Yes.
Yeah, so again, that was what was allowed in the regulatory changes, that, for instance, you wouldn't have to have a full stove under the old rule where you would. To do the conversion. Now that would not be required, but it's very specific, and you should take a look at the legislation and the people who are charged with implementing it.
So I'm under the impression that Sandra wanted us to connect her with a representative from the city. Joe and Annette, did you want us to also connect you guys with someone to have a further conversation?
I think I'm going to start off with Betty, and then if that produces fruit, we'll connect with other people. So we have a number of connections with HPD.
Okay.
We'll start with Betty.
Sounds good. Was there anybody else? I mean, I'm happy to follow up with anybody personally myself or through Betty or through the city, but if there's anybody else who specifically wanted to do some follow-up, please feel free to speak up or just email me or put it in the chat. I know, Oswald, you had asked about documentation we could share with the landlords, and Betty shared a link, which I actually wanted to quickly show on screen. And we can share this again in the chat, but you guys can see that map there on the screen?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So all of the areas that are blue are what they call payment exception areas, where the rents are actually higher than average. And if you want to know what the rent would be at any particular location, you can type in a zip code. And then click. And it'll show you, where'd it go? What the rents would be in that zip code,
Oh, I see. Oh,
depending
that's
on the
good.
size of the unit. Now, again, a lot of these, this one says exception payment standards. This is higher than the average. And this one says payment standards. So these are the average. But again, if you go back and you look at the map, you can see that, again, all the white areas are the standard and the blue is what they call the payment exception, where it's higher. And I mean, it's quite a large amount of the city that's blue. So the rents are pretty good in the first place. And then again, in the blue, they're even higher. So again, I'll share that link for anyone who's interested in checking it out, because I didn't want to make sure it wasn't just Oswald who, got the opportunity to take a look at it. But that's handy if you want to be able to know what the options on the rents are.
Wow, that's really cool. That's great. Okay. All right. Well, Mark, I think we went over a bit, but I think this was really good to kind of get people's questions, and we're learning as we go here. So it's really my dog approves. So.
We seem to be moving towards wrapping up. Again, if people have questions, I'll be happy to stay longer. But I said I'd share some links at the end, so I want to share a couple of links. And they didn't come out in there as clickable. So I will go ahead and I'll have to send them to you guys via email. I'll send out the links to, again, the introduction that I kind of reviewed with you guys by looking at the screen, an FAQ on the program, a video of a past seminar that we did, then also an explanation of the different available vouchers and an explanation of the tenant application process for EHV. Now I'll shoot that to you guys via email.
Yeah, I just want to say it's been great having you all with us. You've all asked some great questions. You've stretched our answers. I mean, you asked us to look at things that we haven't necessarily considered. And I think hopefully there'll be a lot of real opportunities in our follow-up conversations to come up with some ways of really helping folks with these vouchers. And particularly Joe and Annette, think that we'll have some very rich conversations with you and with Betty. Hopefully we can do some real good. And thank you all for joining us. Any further questions, please email Drew at drew@iahh.org about vouchers, and to Peter, I don't have your email memorized. Maybe you could put it in the chat about the energy efficiency work.
Yeah, I put it in a couple times. I'll do it again.
And we will also be providing you with, we'll follow up with an email with a recording of the event. So if any of you missed any of it, you can take a look at it. It'll be up in the cloud.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. I hope to speak to most of you again, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you. Have a great remaining day.
Thanks, Jarell.
All right.